Hello, everyone, and welcome back to WP Café for a special non-live episode where we have got a guest talking about visual regression testing. And this is like a follow-on episode from the last live show that we did where we talked about automations and things like that. So let's get straight into it. I'm here with Keith as well. Say hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
And we've got Michael Bragg back with us today to talk through his setup on visual regression testing, and hopefully we can learn loads from it. So welcome, Michael.
Hiya.
So I think we'll get straight into it, and I think I'll hand over to you, Michael, because I know you're going to do a sort of a live demo of a setup of how you get this started and set up. So I'll let you crack on.
Well, I'm Michael Bragg. I'm a senior WordPress engineer at Vatu, a WordPress agency here in the UK. This is going to be a little quick demo. Most of it is going to be done through GitHub. So anybody can have a look at the code that we're doing, and you don't specifically need any software installed on your local computer to follow along. Although as you develop, you kind of presume that you have experience in setting up a WordPress site. You have a basic knowledge of testing with, just manual testing things, just to talk you through that.
Yep.
I think it's kind of a ground level entry into this. Obviously, we can go quite in depth if we want to, but as a beginning, it's a good introduction.
Cool.
That's cool.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing my screen, please.
I will do. There we go. You're on screen now.
Okay. To begin with, I've set up a very basic GitHub repo. We've got a very few basic setups, like editor configs, a README file, just so they're standard as files there. From here, what we've done for this testing is we're going to use a couple of plugins via Composer that we're going to pull in. You could hard code these into your repository if you wanted to, if you're not comfortable with Composer, but it does just help us speed things along in the short journey. We're also going to be using WordPress environment, which is part of the Gutenberg project that allows us to spin up a test WordPress site extremely quickly without having to install anything locally.
Okay, cool.
So we're going to start from here.
So sorry, Michael. So in this repo, I don't see WordPress. Is that something that's going to get pulled in with Composer, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Cool.
What happens with the WordPress environment? In the background, it will build a Docker container that has WordPress itself in there.
Okay.
Because for our projects, we don't like to include WordPress files in the repository.
Yep.
Because when you're committing them, it kind of reduces the scope we have. So we can't then manually update or automatically update WordPress into the repo. We'd have to go and check it out, copy the files across. Yep. So what we try to do is everything that's third party, we don't want to include into our repository.
Yep. Okay. I think that's a good approach. We've moved to that approach of not having WordPress in the repository. Mm-hmm. A lot less sophisticated than this approach, but it kind of works as well for the similar reasons as well. So it'd be interesting to see this setup. Good.
Well, one of the happy side effects of this is you can use a service called Dependabot. And what it does, it runs over Composer, and every morning it will check for any updates.
All right.
So we include WordPress or plugins via them. So if a plugin is released with an update, it will create a pull request that we can go yes or no to merge. Or once our testing's set up, it will automatically be tested, give us the green light, and be merged for us. And ideally, it's a no-touch process.
That's nice. Yeah. I really like that. Nice. Very cool.
So go from here. So what I'm going to do to begin with is we're going to use a service called Percy CI. Percy.io is a website, and the Percy CI is the scripting language we use. I've set up a very quick test here. It's a free account. I think you get something like 5,000 tests a month that you can use to play with, really.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot. Is that a lot, or is that quite not a lot?
You'll charge on each screenshot. So if you do a screenshot of your homepage, that's one. If you do a screenshot of your homepage in Safari, Edge, and Chrome, each one of those is one. if you do a screenshot at mobile and desktop, they're one. So it can quickly add up.
Yeah.
But kind of depending on the size of your project, I'd say to begin with, just do your core pages. So I personally would do a home page, do a shop page and a product page, and possibly a contact page. Where your core business needs are.
Yeah, I guess it's about picking the journeys that are, or the pages that are absolutely critical or most critical for that particular website. And like the news page might not be as important, like he says, the contact page where they want to get those leads through, maybe.
I think that's it.
Sorry, Michael. I was just going to say, just out of interest, what are the pricing tiers like once you get past that free tier?
They do kind of jump up a little bit. They're part of Browser Stack, so you get the benefits of. If you're paying for Browser Stack at the moment, you also get some help. But I mean, that's $99 a month for 25,000 screenshots. Okay. But a lot of these can be built into your maintenance agreements.
Yeah.
So that's something. And obviously, this one account across several clients can help reduce the cost.
Yeah, it feels like obviously anything jumping from free is a big jump, but like, that was probably a little bit more than I was expecting for the first tier. But I guess, if you're saving hours and hours of time and improving your processes, then that's well worth it, isn't it? So
we use Browser Stack, don't we, Keith?
We've got a Browser Stack account, yeah.
I think it goes on to other conversations that I know you've had. It's like the value to the customer, the value to yourselves. Is it, that $99? If you're $20-30 an hour charging, that saves you 2-3 hours a month. It's easily worth it and can be justified.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to start the setup now. So what we've done here is using the WordPress environment. I'm going to run this locally, but you don't need to. It will all be run through the CI. What it does, it just allows us to quickly run a sandbox version of WordPress. It's an NPM script, so you do need Node installed to run it locally and Docker, but you don't need to worry about setting up Apache, Nginx, MySQL. It's quite a useful little cheat.
Yeah.
And is Docker like a virtual machine?
Yes, it runs on top of virtual machine. The nuances are Docker is lots of little containers, whereas a virtual machine is one machine with lots of things installed onto it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be quite interesting. So now Mac OS is phasing out PHP being installed by default in Monterey. So it may give people a nudge to look at Docker as opposed to having to go through the difficulties of installing it on your local system. And the beauties of Docker as well is you can do one project can be running PHP 5.6, one can be running 7, and they don't get messed up really by conflicting with each other.
Yeah. So forgive my ignorance. I use MAMP Pro, and does that require the Mac version of PHP, or does it come with its own again? Just wonder. I don't know, because I've just upgraded to Monterey and I haven't had any problem. Right.
Yeah. Whereas if you were running it like you built your own development environment locally,
then you would have. I didn't actually know that Macs came with PHP.
It comes with PHP, Apache. I think you get Python and Ruby as well.
Yeah, I knew you had Apache, but I wasn't sure I didn't know about PHP.
It tends to be an older version. I think it's always about one version behind.
Right.
So here is just a very simple WordPress site we've built up now.
Yep.
So that
command that you just, sorry, Michael, that command that you just ran, that was just like creating the Docker WordPress site, basically. And then this is it now in the browser. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is the default version that you can go through. You've got no settings or anything. So what we're going to do from here is if I go back into our code, and I need to grab, we're going to install the Composer package. It's going to install Percy CI, sorry. if it's npm so we're going to install it here as a development dependency, and it should be Percy CLI. And all this tends to do with shortcuts, a big longer extension of what we need to write.
Okay.
And then what we do once this is installed, we'll commit this into our repository, push it up to Git.
Yep.
And it's there. Once we've done that, we'll start.
Sorry, I was going to say, where is it installing this Percy CLI? Is that like in the root folder that you're in, or?
Yes, it's into the node modules here and into your bin directory.
Cool.
It's the same as how you'd use, say, gulp, grunt, or a few other things.
That makes sense.
Michael, was the Docker part of this like a dependency of this kind of process, like running WordPress within Docker, or could you run it within any environment that you use currently and still do the rest of what we're talking about?
For this demo, it's needed, but you could use it through MAMP. All it does really, it just generates the site for you. You can run it locally, or you can run it on a staging site. I'm just using it here because I don't really want to go through setting up a MAMP, setting up a whatever's best for you. So if you use MAMP, you use Docker, you use Valet.
I'm on local at the minute. I've just switched to local, so I was just wondering if I can still use what you're going to be talking about today with my setup on local.
Yeah, 100%. It's
nice.
What's it? Local development agnostic.
Nice. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so I've installed that now. So that's ready for us to use. What I'm going to do also is we're going to create a GitHub workflow that's going to allow us just to automate this quite quickly. So what they are is they're little scripts that GitHub can interpret. It's the same as like what GitHub Actions is a CI system, the same as say CodeShip, Circle CI, Travis, and just allows us to run automatically some number of scripts.
Okay. So you're creating a folder there called, is it Workflows?
Yeah, workflows, and then all these are YAML files within the Workflows folder. And YAML files is just another way of formatting a file.
Yeah. And that Workflows folder is just in the root of this project, is that right?
It's in the .github folder of this project.
Okay.
So if I set this up now, we'll call this visual. And then we just need to set up a few little defaults that GitHub Actions like. So we give it a name. We tell it that when do we want to run these tasks. Now, personally, I think we want to run this on main. Anything that's ever pushed to main is a last chance saloon, fail safe. You know, we don't want to deploy to the client site. You could include any development branches or a staging branch if you have. The ideal one here is on pull requests. So using a workflow is every feature, we create a new branch, we go in there, we do our new feature, we push it to a pull request, and then, push it as a branch, then create a pull request that anybody else can look at and say yes or no. So we're going to run that here as well. And we only really want to run it when it's open or synchronized. You know, we don't want to run this process when we close a pull request.
Yep.
And then from here, we're going to create our actual job. So I'm going to go in and create a job, and I'm going to call this Percy. And we'll give it a name.
So this is the instruction to do this regression using Percy.
Yeah, this is the equivalent of what we would run locally if we were to go install or clone the repository, install PHP, install Composer, install all these little bits and pieces.
Yep.
So name of that. We're going to tell it to run on a machine. So if you were doing anything like app development, you could tell it to run on OS X or Windows or
okay,
like that.
Got
just
you.
As by default, we'll run on Ubuntu.
So
and
that's telling Percy that's the machine that you want to run it on.
This is telling GitHub Actions at the moment.
Okay.
what to run on. And now we're going to create our steps. So we're going to tell it to, what we want to do to begin with, we want to check out our branch. If we do checks out repository, and GitHub has some already pre-built actions that help us out, like little shortcuts really.
Yep.
So I'll just grab that quickly. And then from here, what we're going to do is set up node. We're going to install node. What we've done here, we're telling it to set up node, so it's doing install node. We're telling it version 14 because it's the latest stable version. We're then going to run our npm install, which is a bit like I did locally from there. Just so people can see what versions we're using, we're just going to do a little bit of debug information. It's always useful to know if something goes wrong, is it related to this specific version or, you know, is
yeah. So, Michael, where are you installing Node here? Like, where is this actually?
It's on a cloud. It's on the cloud.
Right.
That wonderful magical term. It's basically a machine that GitHub provides us. It spins up when we want it. We do our things, and then it destroys it when it's finished. So it will only live for a very short period of time.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a quick question on line 25: is install spelled correctly, or is that what it should be spelled like?
Sorry, the name isn't written correctly. Good spot. The actual command was, which is why it worked in testing.
That's fine. That's just the label. I understand.
Yeah. And then what we're going to do now is build our test site. And this is where we're going to start to run the bits and pieces that are probably unique to our setup. So here we're going to run a WordPress environment. You know, you could do, if you wanted to build your own server here, you'd run all your commands to set up Nginx, set up MySQL, or different things depending on what your setup is. So we're going to tell npm to run WP env and start. And that would create that site in the cloud now for us.
How does it get the actual website with all the database and everything?
That's the magic behind WordPress environment. At the moment, it's going to set up a generic default WordPress install.
Okay.
And then what we will do, once we've got Percy running, we will go back and use WordPress command line to set up our site. So we'll tell it to, you know, call it this, install this theme, install this plugin.
Yeah.
So at the moment, we're going to do a very simple test.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, what we've just created there is a default install of WordPress.
Yes.
But obviously, we don't want to run it on a default. We want to run it on a live website. Do we?
Yeah, we can run it on a live. You can run it on a live website. What's going to happen in our next stage?
Or certainly a copy of a live website.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is we're going to run the Percy tests.
Okay.
So what we need to do, we pass it the token that Percy provides us, which is saved as a GitHub secret in the settings section of GitHub, your GitHub repo. And this is our magical command.
Okay.
It says run Percy snapshot. This is a list of the tests that we want it to take screenshots at. And this is where we supply the URL.
Okay.
So because we're working on a local version, it's going to run it in the cloud. We're going to run it as localhost, which is this site here. You could very easily swap this to be your highrise.digital highrise.digital, vatu.co.uk, or staging.clientname.co.uk.
Okay.
But because trying to keep this simple, I don't want to set up a whole staging server somewhere. We're just going to run it in the cloud, which is also an interesting conversation. Is if you run it here, you will find out any problems before you actually deploy the site to staging or production.
Yeah.
If you generate your site, it's a bit more complicated, but I think it can help catch bugs a lot earlier.
So just scroll back up slightly with your code there, just trying to understand what's happening a bit further. So visual regression, right? So correct me if I'm wrong here. GitHub Actions is creating a cloud-based machine for us.
Yes.
And we're checking out the repository to that machine. We're setting up Node. We're installing Node. We're logging the stuff that should be logged. Then we're creating a dummy WordPress environment.
Yep.
And then we're telling Percy to run some tests on that environment.
Yes, that's correct.
And all that's in the cloud. It's on a machine that doesn't exist. It's just there, sat there somewhere. I know it does exist, but okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So my question now is that, like, what we're running these tests on at the moment isn't actually the website that we're trying to test, is it not? Because it's just a default install WordPress.
At the moment,
okay,
what we will do is we will populate that test site with our data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a few WP CLI commands that will populate it. You could import your database from your staging site there. You could connect from this to an external database. So you could have a staging site that's always there, because when we work, especially working with, say, WooCommerce, we don't want our clients' data being passed about from here, there, and everywhere. So what we tend to do is we have a dummy data set, a fixture that then populates with, John Doe, Joe Blogs as clients, rather than actual names and addresses of people.
Okay.
Right, so from here, we've got the command set up now. And what we're going to do is create this file basically, that's just going to list which pages we want to screenshot. So in a test folder, create a folder called visual and create another file called snapshots.yaml.
Okay, so all you're doing there is you're recreating that path that was in that command, basically.
Yes.
Test,
which the path could be anywhere in your repository. I try to do it in a folder called test just to keep things nice and tidy. And then from here, we're going to start our list of pages that we want to do. So to begin with, we best just do the front page. We can do that's going to save our front page. What we will do eventually, we'll add more pages into here.
Yeah.
So we've done that. And that now, in theory, if we commit this to our repository, the changes that we've made. So if we do added,
I love watching other people work. You just just notice how people do things slightly differently, and it's great.
Really I think valuable. That always there's more questions to be asked of, why did you do this? Why is that there? What was that command?
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating.
Exactly. I think watching other people code and use their computers in general can be so interesting. Yeah. Pick up all the little shortcuts and things.
What you were doing on the right hand side of Visual Studio Code then was doing the commit. So I'd jump over to Git Tower and do that. But I guess you could do it. You could do it in a command line or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, we could do Git add file. And Git commit. It's the joys of it. Whatever works best for you. I always think.
Yeah. That's cool.
Right. So that now should be being pushed into our repository. So if I refresh that page now.
So we should have all those folders that we have.
I hadn't told the repository it needs to allow GitHub Actions. No, don't want to do that. Actions. Allow all actions. It should be working then, shouldn't it? But just as a side note, while we're in here, this is where you would add the Percy token in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's secure. So only GitHub has access to it. You don't need to include it in your script of what happens.
Didn't know about GitHub secrets.
You can do secrets on a repository level and also an organizational level.
Oh, nice.
So if you had one secret that you always use across, i.e. your API key to a plugin.
Yeah. Could you do that for license keys then as well? For plugin license keys?
Yeah, if you were to include them through, I mean, Delicious Brains is the obvious one because you can include in Composer their plugins. You could then add that to there and pull it through.
Right.
So if you were working with a contractor but you didn't want to give out the development key,
yeah,
they could still test against those plugins. Right. This is where the fun and games begin because actions aren't working.
Yeah. Okay. How do you know they're not working? What would you expect it to
happen is
do?
you would have a little icon here.
Yeah.
That would go amber to say it's processing, and then goes red or green, depending on if it's finished or if it's passed or failed.
And that should have happened when you committed to that branch.
Yeah.
Or when you pushed to the branch. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And actions. Also, this tab should show you the action working through.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it did look like you had them enabled, but
yeah, allow permissions.
Did they need a paid plan or something? I don't know if because you said you were on a different account.
No, it does it for a free plan. You get, I think it's 2,000 worth of minutes a month, and if you go up through the tiers, you increase. This is a paid plan, and it worked when I was testing this out yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So I've obviously not done something.
To take your time, we can edit this if we need to. It's all right.
Show my embarrassment.
Yeah, it's all right. It's real life, isn't it?
Repository, security analysis. This is where you need a good guide of how you set up every project.
Mm-hmm.
Have I spelt something wrong is the usual.
The
other thing is GitHub. Ah, yes, that's why.
Workflows.
Yeah.
I did that the other day on one of our videos.
Did you?
Instead of workflow. In fact, it was the cafe episode that we had.
Oh, that's so easy to do.
Yeah.
Let's do that now and recommit this. Again, this is why automated testing is brilliant, because if something doesn't work, you know there's a problem. And if that had been a line in my code and I'd used something like Code Sniffer, it would have gone, oh, this function's not right. You're missing a comment, or this doesn't exist because you've named it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you do your commit messages as well. Just noticed.
Yeah, there's
that.
The README project.
Right.
Kind of suggests that you do added, removed, fixed, changed as standardized processes. And then if you name them correctly, what you can do is you could also auto-generate your change logs.
Oh, nice, yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is the holy grail for a lot of plugin developers.
Yeah.
So if we jump back into here now, that should be deploying.
Come on. Not there. So it has changed. Yay.
It's changed and our workflow has broken.
Well, we're getting somewhere.
Yep. So now we're saying no steps defined in the steps. If I miss something out here. And again.
Your little pipe, is it?
No, it was the fact that I put step instead of steps.
Ah, right, yeah.
I'm going to blame the fact that my keyboard broke, so I'm actually typing on my laptop but looking on a desktop screen. That's my excuse.
You can use any excuse you want. It's all right.
That and Apple are taking too long to deliver my new laptop.
Oh, did you order one? You got a new shiny M1?
Yes, I have done.
We haven't ordered them yet. We were like, I thought I was going to be straight on it, and I just don't know. I don't know why I haven't. But I think it's just because this was working. I feel guilty ordering something so expensive when I've got a perfectly working laptop. So, but I think I'll do it.
Replacement cycle. This one's lasted me 5 years.
Yeah, I'm on about 5. Yeah.
It's starting to show its age a little bit.
Yeah.
And like everybody, we like the new sparkly thing.
Well, especially because there's such an improvement. So.
Well, that's the interesting is, can I be more productive by having a lot more horsepower behind me?
Yeah.
We said that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right, so now we're running again with our new workflow.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So what we can do, we can go in here and watch what it's doing at every stage. So it's done our check out the repository. It's installed Node. It's told us what versions. Now it's building that site for us locally. This will take a short amount of time. What you can do is once you're all set up, you can introduce caching into this that speeds things up a bit more. But at the moment now we're doing every task individually to not complicate things. So you can remember, it all cache your npm scripts. I think this is probably going to take another 30 seconds or so.
So this is the bit that I'm kind of sort of surprised at, because what I thought we might be doing, and I get sort of why we're doing this, is what Mark said about like you'd either be testing a staging site or the live production site. But I guess you can't test production because you'd have to make that change. So it'd have to be a staging site or the local site. And then you don't need to actually spin up a site every time, which seems to be like a little bit inefficient. So yeah, maybe we can come back to that, but I'd be interested to know if you can set this up just running it on the local site that you already have.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So now we've run our Percy test, and if we jump back into here, it should start. It's now processing our snapshot of the screenshot.
It's cool.
And that should look like the 2021 theme, shouldn't it, with the green? Yeah.
It should look exactly the same
like that.
as this view.
Yeah.
There we go. So here we are now. We have no current shot. This is our first one. Looks like that. We've got selection, what it looks like in the selection of browsers. You can change, and these can also be configured. So if you have a particular client that runs a number of devices on, say, an iPad, it needs to look perfect. You could supply the width of an iPad or a Galaxy tablet or something like that.
Really, really good. Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now, because this is our first one, I'm going to say, yes, that's what we want. I'm going to approve it.
Okay. So that's now the benchmark to compare against.
Yeah. That's correct. And then what we'll do now is we'll jump back into here. And we're going to start off. I'm going to create a new branch. So I'm going to call this setup dev site. I'm going to base it off our origin main. Now what I'm going to do is going to populate that test site with our data.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a generic script that is going to run a number of WCLI commands. Mainly, so what we could do is in here, we could input each of those commands individually. But by the time we've written all them, we might as well just script it once.
Okay.
So here. And this follows on from our tweet conversation, Mark.
Yeah.
That we had the other day about running commands. What we're going to do here is going to tell it to bash script, which is just a the language that we're writing it in. And what we're going to do is the actual creation of the site is already taken care of. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do some simple renaming. So let's set some options.
Yep.
So if we do npm run, add a comment to what we're doing. And we're telling it to run. Yeah. It's part of our setting up of the site.
Okay.
And then the actual command that we want to run. Plug in. And on that. Option. Update.
Yeah, you're missing a P in description.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would run a command that would just go into the options table and clear that you have a new WordPress website up.
Yep.
And also we can do things like...
And how come we just can't run CLI commands as normal, like WP update? We have to
because we're running on the cloud machine and we're using that WP environment.
Okay.
That's set up. So you could, if you were running it locally, you would just run this.
Okay. Right.
Because that's been installed as part of the WordPress environment setup.
Yeah.
So next we do npm run WP. That would be two commands that we'll run here. But what I think we were talking about earlier is that test site.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to include a couple of themes, or a theme and a couple of plugins here from our composer. So if we do that, so what we're going to do, we're going to back into our workflow and we're just going to remind it that we want to install these. Might be a slight about face way of doing it. So before we run our tests, we're going to do very similar. And we're going to tell it that we want to set up PHP, including Composer is installed. And then what we're going to do here is just tell it to install those plugins. So again, we're using another shortcut from GitHub or from a private account that just sets up PHP in the background, so we don't need to worry about it. And we're just going to do Composer install, no development dependencies, and just to keep it quiet, we pass a few different actions to say, don't output any errors, don't put any. So what that'll do is that'll install those files for us, which lets us go back into our setup script.
So how come we need to install PHP? Because WordPress is running. Surely PHP is already there.
It is, but
we're installing WordPress.
Yeah, this is the difficulty of we using two separate things. The WordPress install has PHP, but it doesn't have Composer installed because it's a third-party tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't. So what we're going to do, if we do activate theme npm run WP CI theme. So what we're going to do is activate the storefront theme that we've included through GitHub now.
Yeah.
And we're also going to activate a couple of plugins.
What does the quiet flag do?
It just means that when it outputs in the terminal, it just doesn't tell you, it's installed this plugin.
Okay.
Just makes it a bit cleaner for when we're reading through and trying to debug things.
Yep.
So install and activate. Oh, it's installed already, isn't it? Activate WooCommerce and activate the dummy thing, is it? Sorry, plugin.
Yeah, so that's those two. And now, also at the end of this, we're going to include our dummy data. So this is I'm going to do a WordPress import.
Okay.
Yep.
But what you could do is, import your SQL database.
Using CLI.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there might be a quicker way of running all these commands without running this small command here.
Sure.
But I'm not quite up to date with environment.
You're more up to date than us.
But here we're going to install the importer. Obviously, I've not done this through Composer because we're only using it very quickly.
Yep.
However, we tend to, for projects, we'll include it in development dependencies.
Yep.
Because there are quite useful times when you're doing that you might want to go and access, re-import your data because you've decided to clean it out or.
And that's the WordPress importer plugin that you can just activate.
That's the official.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is use the quite helpfully added WordPress sample data that they include with their plugin.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Didn't know that either.
And here we
is that just like a list of products that it installs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because when you import, because it's already created from WordPress, you need to assign it users, or if they don't exist, add a user in. So because it's a clean install, we're just going to tell it now to create any new users.
Okay.
Kind of when you go through manually, you click a button to say add admin as user one.
Yeah.
You're just going to tidy it up through the CLI. And then because we're good custodians, I'm now going to deactivate and uninstall the plugin.
The WordPress importer plugin.
Yes. Uninstall.
And will it wait for that previous command to have finished? So
Yes.
it'll wait for the import. Yeah.
Yeah, each one of these is run sequentially.
Yeah. Okay.
So if one of these was to error, it would wait for that to error, then run the following commands.
Yep.
You can set it in Bash to stop completely if you error. I think it's -E as a setting.
Okay.
It would say if at any point it errors, stop the whole process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably should do, but I don't want to risk it while we're doing a live demo.
Yeah, that's okay.
So that looks about right. So we've got that there. So we're going to install our Composer. We'll install into the plugins into here, into the folder called WP content/plugin/themes, which is what we're then using as the reference here to get to that data.
Yep.
So now I should be able to stage those changes. And I'm going to publish this branch now to GitHub. So we go here. And what you'll notice is the tests aren't running at the moment because we said we only run on a pull request rather than every push.
Yep.
Depending on the size of your project, you might want to run it on every push. Personally, I think every pull request, otherwise it can get a bit noisy.
Yep.
And then we will create a pull request as part of our development workflow into main. When I create this request, it's now going to start running the actions, but on the branch, not on main.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what this will do is, because this is one of the reasons why we do it in the cloud, is because you don't have to do the deployment. We're saving ourselves a stage. Whereas if you wanted to put it onto your staging site, you would then have to do a command that deploys. And if you've not got this automated, you can't tell it to pause while I go and FTP in quickly and change a few files. I think this setup works probably a lot better for, say, plugins, where you are starting from a fairly standard base. Okay, so that's taking its time.
Yeah, they're not started yet. Oh, there we go. Setting
it. So what we're expecting to have happen now is we've done some site and theme setup, installed the theme, installed the plugins. So that homepage should look very different now because it's got a new theme and it's got some data and it's got some.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what's our pull request is going to error. It's going to say, no, this isn't correct, because when it compares it to our original, it's going to say, well, these two aren't the same. They're completely different.
Yeah.
And can you override that as well to say, actually, no, that's fine, it should be different?
Yes. Because obviously there are going to be times when you do want to change the look and feel of your site.
Yes.
It's more of a nudge to say, we think this is not right. You need human eyes on this.
Yeah.
Which in our case, yes, because we're setting up the site, we want to approve it. If we were just updating a plugin and hadn't, we would want it to error because we'd want to know, hold on, it's changed something.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for me, I can just see this being just so massively useful because, like I said, when you're building a theme and you end up with loads and loads of CSS, and you're like, especially towards the end of a project where you're doing some bug fixing and you think, well, I know if I change that line, it fixes this bug, but I don't know what impacts that'll have across the other key pages. And this will just be, this could be invaluable.
Wasn't that, and also when you take on projects from, that the client has done themselves or from other agencies, what we like to do is take our critical pages, run this on them before we touch any code, so we know that we've not introduced any issues into it.
Yeah. So
we have here is, we said, well, our visual checks have run. Percy's saying it's not found any.
That's interesting.
Any issues? That makes me think that, there we go, another mistake. I've not told this script to run the script we've just produced.
Yes. Yeah. So this is good. Mistakes like this are good though, because these are the mistakes people are going to make whenever they're doing it themselves. So
so we've created the script, but we haven't actually told it to run it.
Yeah. So that was in. Because we're all human, we're all imposters at the best of times.
Yeah, it feels like
that. And while I think about that, I'm just going to confirm that that's an executable file. So here at the bottom, I'm just going to modify the permissions to say we want this to be executable.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as you wouldn't want every file on your system to be executable in case somebody comes along and does something malicious to it. So if I do that.
And is .bin just a folder in your repo then?
Yeah. It's I don't know why it's called .bin, but it seems to be the standard place that everyone does it. So Composer, I don't know if that does. Node definitely saves it into a .bin file.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where they run all their scripts from. So it's kind of
you could have
industry
it anywhere.
Standard. Yeah, you could change it to called scripts.
Yeah.
You could run it in the top level.
Right.
And so now we've included that script there. Stage that. And I'm still working on my feature branch.
Yep.
Which will be quite a good example.
So when you push this, you'll have to create another pull request.
No. Because it's already attached to my pull request, it will automatically start running this for me. So if we go back into here.
So what's attached to your pull request? This feature branch?
Yeah.
Right.
Each push I make once I've made the pull request reruns all the tests.
Okay. So this pull request is constantly updated because it's attached to that branch.
Yeah. So if you started off by just doing a branch, push 20 changes because you want to, ideally everything would be great when you created the pull request.
Okay.
So then you
We
can
don't
go
use
back.
pull requests, so I'm not quite as familiar as we should be with them.
I think it helps when you're working with more than one person on a project.
Yeah, definitely.
You find then you don't, if you all keep pushing to the main branch, you need to then pull changes that have been made by your fellow developers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does GitHub have a dark mode that you've got turned on? I noticed mine's white.
Yes.
And yours is dark.
Yeah, it's done to my operating system. So I use their version of dark mode. So everything, including GitHub, now turns into dark mode.
Are you in dark mode, Keith, or are you on the...
No, I've never been a dark mode person. I don't know.
No, I haven't. I quite like my editor in dark mode, though, like Visual Studio. I like that to be black, but...
Yeah.
No.
What's the theory behind it? Easier on the eyes? Don't know.
I don't know, actually. Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be, because is it white on black is a lot subtler than black on white or something like that.
Mm. Better for the environment. Pushing out less, your screen's using less power. In dark mode.
And that is now running our WP CI commands.
Nice.
Which is going through adding all the products in now.
This just seems to me like one of those things that once you kind of understand it, like the possibilities just open up, and yeah, it could get quite exciting, this stuff.
I think the beauty is anything you do manually, you can pretty much now script. So you spend a little bit longer writing the script once, but this will save me a lot of time every time I add a feature to this project, because I don't need to go and type in all this, open this page, take a screenshot of it, open Photoshop, compare it on the screenshots I took before, and it also forces you to do it because it's quite easy to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's
one thing I was going to ask, Michael, is whenever we were in Percy before, and we accepted it, and Mark asked, does that create a benchmark? I was wondering, does the next task compare it to that snapshot, or does it always do a snapshot before and after the tests that you're currently running?
You set a source of truth in Percy, and then it always compares to that source of truth. So what has happened here is it's now saying one of our checks has errored.
Good. Yeah.
Saying Percy.
Yeah.
So if we go into Percy now, this is now going to compare it against our source of truth, which is completely red because we've added a lot more changes to the page. If it was just like a bit of text, the redness would be smaller.
I see. So Percy's adding the red to say error.
Yeah.
There's a problem here. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something that needs your attention.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we could do is, if, as we want to say, yes, that's right, we approve it. If not, we can then go back and fix the problem. So you could go back and be more specific on your CSS rule that only affects what you're trying to change.
Yeah. So I guess, right, just to come back to my question, because I'm still not 100% sure on the answer. If you hit approve now, is that what Percy is going to compare our next one to? Or so for example, if you hit approve and then you went and changed a bit of text on the page and made some code changes to the theme or whatever, some visual changes to the theme, and ran the test again, does it compare it to the one that you've just done right now after approving this build, or does it do a pre-snapshot and a post-snapshot at the moment of the test?
it will compare to whichever one you set it to. So in our project settings here,
Okay.
there we go. Auto approve branches. That should be main. A bit behind the times. What it would do is say our default branch is main, so it would compare it against the last deployment of main, or the last test run on the main branch.
Okay.
So,
So it would potentially pick up, for example, content changes as well as any code changes if you were running it on, for example, a local development environment.
Yeah. So if you were to compare your local version to your production site, if your database wasn't exactly synced, it could throw up errors, which again is one of the benefits of running it against a test database that you know is always going to be the same.
Yeah.
Because it could be that split second between you committing your feature, your client could then go and add a new news article, and it would throw it all out, which is why I kind of wanted to show you setting it up on almost a generic setup.
I understand that more now, why you need to do it this way. Yeah.
So we've done that. So if we approve that build now, we could then go back, make another change, and if it failed, it would be compared against the last screenshot from the main branch. Does that kind of clear up your
I think so.
original question?
So. Yeah.
So going from here now, we've done that. What we can do is we're going to extend this now. So if we go back into our test, because we're now running an e-commerce store, we probably want more than just the homepage testing.
Yeah.
So we'll add a couple of extra ones in here.
I was confused initially whenever you used localhost there, because I was like, well, why are you setting something up on the cloud and then using it? But that is the cloud address, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
it's local to the cloud machine.
To the cloud, exactly. Yeah.
It's pretending to be a local development environment.
Yeah, I understand. That confused me to start with, but I thought it would all become clear eventually. It did.
Yeah, probably should have clarified that a little.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
What product do we do? Product, I think there's one called hoodie. Closed. So here's a good example of it. We've approved that build, but now we're going to make some extra changes to it. So because we're not merging this into main, if we push it again, it should fail again, because we're comparing against main, not itself.
Okay.
So we do added.
But it should show us more pages this time.
Yeah.
Or more screen.
Actions. Take a couple of seconds to push. Maybe I need to push. Again, and this will do us the two extra pages, but still fail because it doesn't meet main single source of truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then once we're happy with all this, we merge this into main. Main then takes a fresh screenshot of the site and uses that as the source of truth. So if then we do another feature, it's going to compare it against our newly updated code, which has the storefront theme and WordPress dummy data. WordPress dummy data.
Yep.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, it takes a little while, doesn't it? Building a new WordPress site every time. Yeah.
So you can speed this up with caching.
Okay.
So because we're only installing like the 14 seconds it took to install Composer dependencies, it's had to go away, grab those files, and download them. Whereas what we can do is store the file. The first time we do it, store them locally, and GitHub Actions is clever enough to go away and grab them. And as long as they're the same version number, it will use those.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is 14 seconds, but some of the larger projects we work on, it could be a minute's worth of downloading 40, 50 different dependencies.
Yeah.
And I think as you work with this, you'll speed things up. You can split tests out into multiple tests so you can have them running concurrently. So you could have this running, you could have your LinkedIn process running, you could have your unit test running, everything could be running at the same time.
Yeah.
So although this is taking a minute and a half, you could run several different tests in that minute and a half, as opposed to running them one after the other.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And obviously the same with the import. We run this. If you just imported your MySQL database in, it would be a quicker process than importing every product individually through the XML file.
That's amazing.
And also these are the opportune moments to go and get up, stretch your legs, walk around, the breaks that we never take.
Good point. I heard once that Matt Mullenweg does press-ups in between meetings and things, apparently. Hits the floor, does 10 press-ups in between calls.
Someone, I can't remember who it was, someone tweeted out that they only ever take calls when they're on a walk. It's a great way to just walk around and talk to people.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
That's quite clever.
Yeah.
The stand-up meeting's a good process where you physically stand up and then it stops. When you get tired, you stop talking.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go back into here.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? Yes, to stop everyone getting too comfortable. Yeah, it's good.
So again, we've run our tests, and Percy's processing the visual changes, which we're going to expect to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's still pending, isn't it?
Yeah, it takes a short while because obviously you've got to copy the screenshot across and then compare the two.
Yeah, we've added more screenshots, haven't we? So
yeah, so now that's failed. So if we go back into our builds, let's close that and keep it tidy. I'll just press the right key. So now these are our two changes. We've added new pages in.
Yeah. Cool.
And there's our error, so to speak, still, because we're comparing against the main branch.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to say, because we're happy with the build, I'll approve that build.
Yeah.
Because we think they're all right. And then in here, this changes now to green, and it allows us to then create the merge request. And what we can do as another extended goal, you could automate that, say, well, when all the checks are green, automatically merge.
Mm.
And you can also set up in GitHub, I believe you can in other, in Bitbucket and GitLab, to say, don't allow anybody to merge if all the tests aren't passing. It's almost like a fail safe.
Yeah.
What does rebase do? It said rebase and merge.
What it does, it compares it to, basically it takes everything from master, from main,
Yep.
and then it intelligently merges the two in. So what had happened would be if Keith had decided to change something on this project, he'd committed that to main while I'm doing this process.
Yep.
Instead of me having to pull Keith's changes down, merge them into my own, and then re-push it back up, it's intelligent enough to go, actually, because he's only done one change, we'll slot Keith's change was the third one in the list. We'll slot it in here,
right?
Which just saves us several different commands to run. Sometimes it can't, because if we've changed, say, the same file, it's going to find a merge conflict. It's just a bit of a... I always think it's a best practice, because it makes sure that I can merge everything in tidily. And when you do your list of your commits, instead of having merge fixed workflow steps, merge fixed workflow steps, it just keeps it a bit tidier.
Yeah, it does.
And also, if you were to auto-generate your change logs based on your commits, it just might be a little bit easier for you because there's less noise to pull out.
Yep.
So now that's running through the tests again, just because it's on main to say, yes, we'll go and get that screenshot, which will then become our single source of truth for any extra features that we want to run.
Okay.
So I think that's a very basic overview of how we can get it to work. What I will do is, if I can remember it, you can run this locally. As I know you mentioned, you may want to run it locally. So what we do is we have to supply it with our token. So
that's the Percy token, is it?
Yeah, which I'm trying to think of the best way to do this without showing it, but I don't think there is a great method to do it.
We could potentially blur it out or block it afterwards.
Let's try if I can run the code, but without with just a dummy token, maybe. So if this is the command it would be. Token equals token, and it is basically what we run is the command that we run in here in our workflow.
Yeah.
So we run Percy snapshot tests visual.
And then that would be whatever address you're running locally on.
Yeah. And then that would run Percy and compare it to
main.
Yeah, main. What you can do as well is you can tell it a branch name. So what it would do, it would pretend it's on this branch.
Yep.
But you can then pass it to like just prevent, like I would do. I'd say pretend I'm on a test branch because I'm running this locally. Which is Percy branch equals test. If we were to run that now, in fact, if you think you can blur it out, well, it doesn't matter because it's only a test repo. I could probably run it and show you how it would work.
I can make a note to try to blur it if you want.
So this command, but what this command is going to do, it's going to run it against my local version.
Yeah.
Which we know doesn't have the WordPress setup installed at the moment. So it's going to fail. That's another spelling mistake.
Off it goes.
Unfortunately, it needs to download a copy of the browsers to run. But this is why the task takes a little bit longer.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Again, it's a good reason not to run it locally because you haven't got to keep downloading all these files.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Don't have to be doing that every time.
I mean, I presume it will cache the downloads once it's done, so you wouldn't need to keep downloading it each time.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't be.
So is it going to download like Safari and Edge and?
You
Or not? I don't know.
You can tell it which ones that you want to use.
Okay,
because I'm on a free account, I can't disable some of these, but you could only run on Chrome, only run on Firefox, only run on Edge.
Okay, sure. Good.
Count down the seconds.
Of course, it would be faster to download if you weren't on this live stream as well.
That's true.
I see.
Yeah, that'll be another good reason. It's another good reason to invest in the new Mac, because it will all be faster.
Oh, exactly.
I'll keep getting them justifications in.
Yeah.
When's it arriving yours, have they said?
First or second week in December at the moment.
Wow. That is a long time. You need to get yours ordered, Keith, or else you're going to be 2023 at this rate.
I know.
If you have the lowest spec ones, you can walk in and order them now. They've got them in stock. Yeah. If you want the slightly bigger hard drive or the Pros, you need to. Yeah. So here we go. So what we've done, that's run the tests. We jump back into here.
Yeah, snapshot stuff run it.
And we're going to expect it's going to fail on the home page because it's not going to look the same, but it's going to fail on the shop and product page because they don't exist on my local.
Yeah.
So presumably part of that script uploads them to the Percy sort of website as well, so you can see them in here.
Yeah, it's all done through the website.
Yep.
I don't think Percy do a local version of it.
Yeah.
So you would need to be here. So here we go. So obviously our 2 pages, because they're not there, everything's wrong.
Yeah.
And our home page as well. But this is running it from locally. But because we're running it locally, we don't get the benefits of it blocking any merges.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Very good. That's interesting.
So I think that's probably the basic level of how to set it up on a repository. So
that was a great overview.
If there's anything I can clarify, or you got any more questions?
If I was watching this episode, the question I'd now ask is, all that you've done today, can we access it and have a look at it and use it? And if that's the case, where will we be able to find it all?
This is on a public GitHub repository. So that's github.com/Michael Bragg /WP-testing-demo. That's all the code is all there. So you can go in here now. You can look at all the files. You can, I think they last for 30 days. You can go and have a look at each one of these. You can see where I've messed up.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Or if you think of anything better ways of doing it, you can make a pull request. You can fork it, so you could fork it and then set it up on your own sites.
Yep. I think that's going to be really useful for people.
That's it. Or you could clone it locally and just copy and paste the files across into your own projects so that they're more private.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
That's great. I will put us all back on screen if I can work out how to do it. Wait a minute. Let's remove.
Yeah, super. So
there we go.
That was obviously something a bit different for our channel. But if you've watched this and enjoyed it and want more of this kind of content, if you want Michael back on at some point, leave a comment, give us a like, subscribe to the channel if you want more stuff like this. Massive thank you to Michael. Thank you so much. But also to Vatu for allowing you the time really to come on the show and share your expertise, which I'm sure is very, very valuable expertise. So big thanks to the team at Vatu as well. Do you want to do any shameless plugs for anything, Michael, either for the agency or yourself? Feel free. This is your time.
Obviously, if you want to get involved, if you want more questions, you can come and ask us. I'm on Twitter at Michael Bragg is probably the best place to get me. Potentially post any issues in the GitHub issues thing if you've got questions. That's it. Obviously, we as Vatu as an agency, we do a lot of this work on our client projects and also for other agencies.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in getting this set up for your agency, we're happy to come in and consult and help talk you through the process of not just visual regression testing, but end-to-end testing, integration testing, unit testing, everything to get you to be more comfortable shipping your websites and products.
Awesome.
And we're obviously at vatu.co.uk.
Yeah, we know a few of the Vatu team. Great people. So yeah, I highly recommend that if you're interested in this kind of thing. And thanks again, Michael. Hopefully we will have you on the show again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you.
If people are interested, we could always go and do the next levels of testing.
Yeah, exactly. There's loads more to do, isn't there? So yeah, awesome stuff. Well, thanks very much. Thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.